Hey everyone, Anya here at Our Gabled Home, where I like to share tips for a simple, beautiful, healthy, and sustainable living. And in today's video, I want to show you how you can make lye pretzels, German-style lye pretzels. And they're very easy to make. You may have had them at some Oktoberfest. Maybe you went to Germany and tried them there and really loved them. And I found that most pretzels you get in this country are either really hard to find and expensive, or they're too sweet because there's always too much sugar added to them, and it's actually really simple to make your own. So let me show you how to do that. So for your dough, you need 3.5 cups of flour or 500 grams of flour. For my pretzels in this batch, I used a little portion of whole wheat flour. You can also use spelt flour or just simple white bread flour. And then you'll add 1/6 cup of milk or 300 grams of warm milk to it. You use 2 teaspoons of dry yeast, and then you let that sit. When I was making it, I had my dough already prepared. 10 grams of salt, 40 grams of melted butter, and 1 tablespoon of malted barley flour. Now I use that because it's rich in enzymes and it makes the dough a little bit better to work with. You can also just add a simple 1 tablespoon of sugar, no more than that. You just want to feed the yeast a little bit, but you don't want the pretzels to come out all sweet. And with that, I'm also linking the recipe below. With that, you just work it into a simple yeast dough and let that sit in a warm spot for about an hour until the dough has doubled in size. And then you bring it back and you start making your pretzels. Now, one thing I want to talk about is, because I called my pretzels lye pretzels, that I am using food grade lye for this. It is toxic if you use it caustic, so I caution you to use gloves and goggles or glasses when you're working with it. And the way to do this is you just use 1 quart of water. You always add the water first, and then you add about 1 ounce of food grade lye to it. You heat that up, and that is what you will be dipping your pretzels in. That is also what gives your pretzels this reddish color and the very distinct familiar taste that you know. If you don't want to invest in this, and I'll be linking below where you can find this online. If you don't want to use lye, food grade lye, you can also use baking soda. It's not going to be quite the same, but you still get a nice brown crust. And what you'll be doing is you use 1 liter or 1 quart of water and about 60 grams of baking soda, and then you just dissolve the baking soda in the water, and that's going to be your bath for the pretzels. So here's my dough, which I'm going to divide into little portions that I will weigh out to make sure that the pretzels are pretty much the same size and thickness and all. So I'm using my kitchen scale, and because I'm a metric person, I will use about 80 to 85 grams. I'm just cutting off pieces, weighing them out, so this is way too big. I'm always surprised how little I can actually eyeball the actual. So here's it's actually 87 grams. I'll roll that into a longer shape roll, and I'll set that aside. And then I'm going to continue with the rest of the dough until I have all my individual balls ready to go. I'm going to set these aside for a moment, so I have this workspace to shape the pretzels. So how you shape a pretzel is you roll them into a long string with a thicker piece in the middle. Now in Germany, there's different regions with different shapes of pretzels. The Bavarian pretzel is more of an evenly thick shape. The Swabian pretzel near Stuttgart has that thicker part at the bottom of the pretzel, or however you want to call it. So that's what I like to do. And then you want your ends to be pretty long and thin, which I'm doing here. And then I'm doing that on this side. And I'm going to show you very slowly how you form your pretzel. So you have this U. I know this is not very even here at the bottom, but that's just handmade. And you cross them over once, and you cross them over another time, so they look like this. And then you bring the ends back and press them down. You can kind of round these ends a little bit. And here's your pretzel. Doesn't matter where you attach them. You transfer those to a baking sheet. And then I'm just sort of repeat the rest of the pretzels. I'm going to just repeat this until all my little dough shapes are formed into pretzels. So while you're doing this, you want to also press so this doesn't happen, so it doesn't break. And once I have all my pretzels done, this is my second baking tray, then I like to pop them in the freezer for about 15 minutes to harden them up, and I'll explain to you in a moment why I'm doing that. If they don't fit into the freezer, you can also put them in the refrigerator for about an hour. You just want them to be they're very soft right now. You want them a little bit stiffer and a little bit more sturdy, so you can actually move them in and out of the lye bath. Now my pretzels are ready to be dunked into the lye bath. And because lye is caustic, I am being good and using gloves. I have to admit that sometimes I don't use gloves, but it's always recommended to wear gloves and goggles or glasses. And because I have frozen my pretzels, you can see that they're very solid, and that's actually easier to dunk them because then they won't get super soft and lose their shape. So I'm going to dunk them in there. Some sources say do that for 30 seconds. I haven't really found any difference if I dip them in there longer, and then with a slotted spoon I'll take them back out and put them back onto my cookie tray. And I'm just going to repeat that for all of my pretzels. In the meantime, my other batch is in the freezer waiting to get solid. And I'll get that out. I'm just going to repeat that for the remaining pretzels, making sure they're completely dipped and dunked all the way into the lye bath. And you can see that with this one, struggling to get it back out. The challenge is not to destroy it. And this lye, I didn't make up fresh. I actually used my lye a few times and stored in a glass jar that I mark very carefully so that everybody in my household knows that this is lye. It has red writing on it and a few exclamation marks so that nobody accidentally does anything else with it. And now we need to cut the pretzel. So you want to take a very sharp knife and just cut a little bit into the thickest part or that bottom part of the pretzel. It should also be fine to touch the pretzel at this point. So when the pretzel dough rises, it will give you that gaping mouth. Some pretzel makers don't do that. I always like to do it, even though they don't always open as nicely as I would like to. They're pretty frozen on the inside still. And lastly, we'll sprinkle them with coarse pretzel salt. I think it makes a big difference in the taste. You can use as much or as little as you like. And here they are, fresh out of the oven. As I promised you, not everybody, all the pretzels opened up the way I wanted them when I cut them. These are a little bit better, and I'm not actually exactly sure why that happens, but you can see that the lye creates this nice reddish color and a very specific pretzel taste. And these will just cool off on a rack, and then they're ready to eat. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel. You can also give me a like. You can hop over to my blog, ourgabledhome.com, where I have more tips and recipes, and I look forward to seeing you next time.